This is CBC Here and Now.
Everybody was really happy and relieved that they were in Canada and St. John's.
With the arrival of 116 refugees from Afghanistan, the Association for New Canadians has a lot of work to do. I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
Well, we're getting closer to the weekend. That ridge of high pressure will dominate, and that means lots of sunshine.
I tried robbing banks to get some extra money, but that didn't work either, right?
As gas prices hit record levels, what are some more practical ways to save money?
Zach Gowdy hits the road searching for ways to use less gas.
It's what an Aboriginal community should be doing.
New place brings new possibility for the Mi'kmaq First Nation in Conne River. I'm Garrett Barry, and I'll bring you that story coming up on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes.
And I'm Anthony Germain. We have more details tonight on the 116 Afghan refugees who arrived in St. John's on Tuesday. Today, the Association for New Canadians spoke to the media about the group's arrival, the work that needs to be done, and how people can help out. Jeremy Eaton now with that story.
These are the first pictures that we're seeing of the 116 Afghan refugees arriving in St. John's. They fled a country in turmoil and arrived in a new home.
It was unbelievable. I've been in this business for a long time, and I don't think I have seen something like this. It was incredibly moving.
These Afghans were part of thousands the federal government promised to get out from under Taliban rule. But welcoming 116 people into St. John's takes a lot of planning.
The last few days have been extremely hectic. We've been planning and preparing for this for weeks with many partners and government, federal and provincial government. It's been a whirlwind of activity.
As soon as the plane filled with the newcomers arrived, the Association for New Canadians were there to help them out.
Well, everybody was super excited. We couldn't wait for the plane to land. And then I was one of the first persons to greet the families. I was one of the first persons on the aircraft. Everybody seemed so hopeful and they were so happy. Obviously, they were tired because they were traveling for a very long time, but the mood was amazing.
Working with a large group in a pandemic hasn't been easy, but we've had a lot of experience. We've been supporting arrivals since March of 2020 when the pandemic first hit, and we've been able to work through that.
We usually receive between 300 and 400 refugees a year, and we always do find housing for them. We put a lot of effort into that. I know this year is challenging. Housing is a challenging issue, but we're pretty creative, and we will find housing for all of them.
NDP MHA James Dinn told reporters today that he's heard 55 of the 116 are children, which would explain the large number of toys and kiddie clothes here.
The biggest challenge, I think, is just making sure that there's time and patience available for people so they can rest and recover. If folks have donations or gift cards or anything like that, we're happy to receive it. Right now, because of COVID, we're asking for if you can manage to do a gift card or something like that, that's a little easier, but we welcome new or gently used items as well.
Next up for the ANC is to figure out what each family needs and get the new Canadians resettled into life in St. John's, then work on finding schools for the children and jobs, making this a home in the hopes that they'll stay. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
It wasn't very warm out there today. Temperatures taking its time, certainly to warm up, only reaching a high near 3 degrees in St. John's. That is well below where we should be sitting this time of year. We did hit a couple of double digits though. Stephenville again today, at least the southwestern portion of the island. Same thing for Lab City this afternoon, reaching those temperatures. Big ridge of high pressure in place. I've been talking about this all week in an area of low pressure to the south as well, actually bringing some showers a little bit closer to the southern areas of the Avalon and the Burin Peninsula during the next couple of hours. This shouldn't get any further north than that, but we are seeing some windy, breezy conditions, I should say, about 40 to 50 kilometer per hour winds. That's pretty much where we've been sitting for most of the day today, with those winds out of the east or northeast. And as we head through the next day or so, we're going to see those winds pretty much stay in and around there, 40, maybe even 60 kilometers per hour. And then as we get into Saturday, that's when that area of high pressure will take hold and winds will die down. I'll get into those details when I come back.
Thank you, Ashley. The Court of Appeal has dismissed a convicted murderer's attempt at a new trial. Brandon Phillips is serving time for the second-degree murder of Larry Wellman. Phillips killed Wellman while attempting to hold up the captain's quarters in St. John's in October of 2015. A panel of judges disagreed with Phillips' argument that the judge made an error by allowing the prosecutor to re-examine a witness. They also dismissed his suggestion that the jury's verdict was unreasonable. Phillips is not eligible for parole until 2027.
Well, the health minister says he's not surprised by a recent survey that found only half of MUN Medical School students who wanted to stay in Newfoundland and Labrador actually did. John Haggie says the province is aware of the problem and is taking steps to fix it. Here now's Mark Quinn reports.
Almost 300 doctors who graduated from Memorial University's medical school between 2003 and 2018 responded to the survey. 78% of them said that during training they wanted to stay here and practice, but only 55% of that group actually did.
55% is not far from the information we had the last time we looked at a survey, and that was around 60. Bottom line is, we'd like that to be as near 100% as we can make it.
The Newfoundland and Labrador Medical Association says healthcare is in crisis, with about 99,000 people in this province without a family doctor. The association is calling on the province to do more to recruit and retain doctors. Haggie says steps are being taken to address the problem. Last week, he announced tens of millions of dollars annually to improve primary care.
And some of that will be allocated to a provincial recruitment office. So we know we need to start recruiting really in high school. We need to look at people who want to do medicine or other healthcare professions and find them and help them see the way through to get to be trained and then to see Newfoundland and Labrador as an attractive place to work.
This province is competing with other provinces where physicians are paid more. Negotiations for a new contract with physicians here have broken off. Doctors say they want changes that would make it more attractive for them to stay. They've walked away from the table saying government is offering no new money to do that. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the Premier offered a message of hope at a dinner for party supporters last night. It was $500 a plate to attend the fundraiser.
It said that hope must be, has to be, the answer to all of it. And I've spent every single day since keeping that light burning, standing on guard for it. Because I know with all my heart that it is hope that will get us through this. We have already seen it. It already has. We cannot be anchored to the ghosts in the riverbanks. We need to recognize the opportunity we have and capitalize on it while it's valuable. We have only scratched the surface when it comes to our energy space. That's something that goes well beyond the renewables, well beyond oil and gas, beyond wind, beyond solar, beyond hydro. Because it's about the energy of the people of this province, the innovators, the change makers, the doers, the true believers in Newfoundland and Labrador. Yes, tough decisions have been made since I took office. And you know what? There are many more to come. Sacrifices have been made, and there will be more. But as we did in the pandemic, we must pull all our hopes in what is coming next and work our absolute hardest to achieve it. There will always be skeptics. There are the fearmongers and the doomsdayers who constantly write and revise this province's obituary. These are the ones that we must guard hope against, guard the province and our future against. Because as the next chapter of our province takes shape, we will need your torches burning the brightest, your voices speaking the loudest, that the future of Newfoundland and Labrador remains that bright beam in the east, to guide by it, to stand on guard for it, to never stop believing in it.
Now, the fundraiser for the Liberal Party had lots of people, but not a lot of masks. Images like these of people milling about inside without wearing masks had some people wondering why even cabinet ministers didn't seem to be following COVID rules requiring masks to be worn in indoor public spaces. Well, today, the health minister, who was at the event and was seen wearing a mask, insists the rules were followed.
That event was held perfectly compliant with public health requirements. So VaxPass was used, the tables were physically distant, and you took your masks off to eat and drink and move around when you were masked.
Other news now, the cost for a litre of regular gas dipped nearly 2 cents today, so now sitting at $1.62.5 on the Avalon Peninsula. But that's small relief after weeks of increases.
Yes, and many people are getting desperate for a break. We asked a pair of driving experts for tips on how to burn less gas, but their 2 cents was that it's really tough to save more than just a few pennies a litre. Here now, Zach Gowdy explains.
Okay, what if I underfill the tires? Or overfill them? What if I only fill the tank halfway up? Like ever? How about I just drive really slow? Like really, really slow?
Is there a way you can save money on gas? With the price at the pumps stuck in record-setting territory, it's a good time to ask.
How much to fill up your car these days?
It's like $75 to $80. It used to be $40.
It's about $60 almost now.
$60?
Yeah, for the size of the tank, yeah.
Have you tried driving differently or doing anything differently behind the wheel to save money?
Yeah, I tried robbing banks to get some extra money, but that didn't work either, right?
At the garage, it's a question people have been bringing in, along with their vehicles.
People ask all the time if there's any way that they can save some money by driving their cars more efficiently. It's coming up more and more now that the cost of gas has gone up, especially when people come in and they're looking to get repairs made. They'll say that they've noticed that their car is not as efficient on gas as it used to be, but most of the time it's not that their car is worse on gas, it's just that gas is more expensive.
The question is also coming up at Saad Ahmed's driving school, and not just from students.
From one car, we gone to 2 cars, and this year I got 2 more cars. So now 4 cars running at the same time on the street. It's like a really big impact on my business. As you know, it's a driving school, so we have to be on the road all the time. End of the day, you need to fill up your tank, and I can see huge, significant changes.
But sadly, both our driving experts told us it's hard to make huge, significant savings on your gas bill.
I tried so many different ways, but to be honest, it didn't help that much.
Whether or not those ideas work is anybody's guess. We have done some studies to find out that the amount of savings is possibly minuscule. People do recommend that keeping your tires with the appropriate amount of air and the appropriate size can help reduce the amount of gas that you're burning. Another way, people think if you drive a little bit gentler when you're going through town, not accelerating too fast at green lights, that can help you save some money.
One of my friends says, I'm trying to keep my car as light as possible because I feel that if the car is too much heavy, it's gonna consume too much gas. I'm like, that's not sure. I don't know whether it's true or not, but they tried. People are desperate at this point to come up with different ideas, so whichever way they can save some money, right?
So while changing your driving habits may save you a few cents a liter, the only sure way to save big on gas is to look for ways to burn less.
Whether it's planning your trips when you're coming home from work to run your errands on the way home instead of making a special trip out, avoiding idling while you're in the driveway, even going to drive-thrus. You could easily spend 15 to 20 minutes in a drive-thru waiting for a cup of coffee. All that time that you spend idling is gas that you're burning.
There is no magic solution for sure, but at the same time, if you can make a plan before you travel and have some alternative plans in your head too, so that if something goes wrong, you know which way to go home. Until then, you have to pay whatever it says on the billboard. That's what it is. That's the reality.
Zach Gowdy, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the new face of the Mile 1 Centre isn't getting involved in the dispute over the Newfoundland Growlers being locked out of the building. The Mary Brown sign is just going up. Seen Mile 1 come down, Mary Brown's going up, and the company which bought the naming rights says it's not taking sides. It does say that it's hoping for a swift resolution, that both sides will be happy with. Yesterday, the city announced the Growlers are kicked out of the arena while it investigates complaints of harassment towards staff from the company that owns the Growlers. The Growlers are going to play the first few games of the season in Toronto instead. Well, in other news, the Mi'kmaq First Nation finally has its first community centre. The community's old school was saved and then it was renovated. So now the centre is open to the public and it's the fulfillment of a long-time community dream. Here now's Garrett Barry has that story.
This building was destined for demolition. Chief and council had other plans.
The federal government offered us $500,000 for demolition. And we said, thank you very much, but we're not tearing down the school. We're going to save it and turn it into a community center.
These halls will live again with displays, workshops, classes, and recreation.
And so it continues to be a place of learning. And that's, to me, that's the best part of it.
So your great-grandfather used to make these snowshoes.
A central place where cultural teaching can be passed from one generation to another.
I'm able to show my son, like, this is a part of the history in which he came from, you know, like that would be his great-grandfather and his cousin's great-grandfather, and that there are still people today that are still doing their artisan work and sharing the knowledge.
I had no idea about like any of this. I just was surprised when she told me one day.
Yeah.
That I have a big history like this.
It's been a community dream.
One of the things that's been at the top of the list for the last 20 years, if not more, has been a recreation center or a community center.
And as of Friday, it's open for business.
There were so many comments around, like, imagine we were going to beat this down, like this would have been demolished, and now we have this. So it was wonderful to see.
For the chief, council, and staff here, this place represents more than just a basketball court. Look closely and you'll start to see tournaments, conferences, and more visitors to this community.
You know, the year-end volleyball provincial tournaments, we were never able to bid for that because we didn't have the space for that. We're able to host conferences now if we wanted to. We have a gymnasium for a larger space. We have an eating area. We have training rooms or breakout rooms. And other things such as weddings and birthday parties and, you know, smaller community events such that we didn't have a space for before.
She says space like this will be a great benefit to community health, healthy bodies, and healthy minds. Garrett Barry, CBC News and the Mi'kmaq First Nation.
Some people look at heritage buildings and you can obviously see the history there. Many of these were also at least 150, 200 plus years old as well.
A little later in the show,
we'll meet people preserving markers of the past. Time for a look at the weather forecast. It seems like some nice weather on the way the next few days. I love this this fall weather.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Gray skies? No,
Oh,
just
I thought
kidding.
there was sunshine.
No, there's definitely sunshine coming,
Okay.
but it hasn't been so sunny. And it's kind of chilly today. It was cold this morning when you walked out the door for sure. And not as cold as yesterday, though.
I keep forgetting my gloves. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't have it in my head yet to take my gloves, so I keep forgetting them.
Yeah, you'll definitely need them over the next couple of days, but the sunshine will return. Let's take a look at where we were sitting this morning, 2 degrees in St. John's. So not quite as cold as yesterday. Some areas seeing just hovering around the 0 degree mark, but the coldest temperature was in Lab City again today, -8. Temperatures rebounded beautifully though this afternoon, reached a high near 10 degrees, and you're still sitting at 9 right now. Same thing pretty close, Churchill Falls, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and Stephenville all sitting at 8 degrees. Otherwise, didn't really climb too much today in St. John's. 3 degrees is where you're sitting right now. And you factor in that wind chill, it is feeling much cooler than that, -2, -4 in Gander. And then we've got a temperature 3 degrees for Twillingate, but feeling more like -3. So not a whole lot going on weather-wise. That ridge of high pressure is still dominating the weather story for most of the province. However, that nor'easter is tracking well south of the Maritime provinces right now. But if I zoom in a little bit, you can see some of that rain making its way a little bit further north. Now, this should be as far as it goes, as far as tonight goes. Model's not really doing a great job picking that up as far as where it's placing it, but overall, that is the only regions that we should see some showers through the overnight as far as through the system. But because we're in that onshore flow, that potential for a few showers, even a few flurries, is possible again through the overnight. Model showing that in around the Bonavista Peninsula, and then as well as the northern Avalon tonight. And then we may even see that through parts of central as well. Otherwise, nothing but clear skies tonight across Labrador. Same thing for the west coast, and then parts of the south coast as well, as we start to clear out even as we get into the early morning hours, as that area of high pressure will continue to sink further south. So temperatures tonight up across Labrador, another cool night. Lab City down to -7 again. -5 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Otherwise, the temperature will hover around the 0 degree mark for Cartwright. A little bit warmer to the north, though. Nain, you should sit around 5 degrees. And then most of the island will sit in the single digits on the plus side of the mercury, except for the northern peninsula. You'll hover a degree or 2 below 0 with those winds out of the northeast right across the board, at least for the island, somewhere between 20 to 50 kilometers per hour with those wind gusts. So tomorrow, another absolutely gorgeous day up across Labrador, and eventually we will see some clearing skies across the island as well. First half of the day should start sunny and stay sunny for the west coast, and then the potential to see maybe a few showers or a few lingering flurries in the morning for central and eastern areas of the island, but it will eventually clear. It doesn't look like it'll clear before sunset, though, for the Avalon, maybe the southern Avalon, but it looks like it should stick around. But as we head through the evening hours and overnight, we will see some clearing skies, and that should set the stage for an absolutely gorgeous Saturday, it looks like at this point. So temperatures tomorrow, a couple of degrees warmer than what we're seeing today. 7 degrees for St. John's. Those winds again going to stay out of the northeast, likely hovering around 30 kilometers per hour. We may see some gusts upwards of about 40 kilometers per hour. But again, those clearing skies as the day goes on, certainly past the, say, west of the isthmus. Terra Nova 6 degrees, Grand Falls, Windsor around 8, and then Harbour Breton looking at those warmer or milder temperatures anyway, around 8 degrees with that sunshine as well. And then as far as the west coast goes, the southwest looks beautiful, and then even parts are looking at those temperatures reaching the double digits. 10 to 12 degrees should be the afternoon story for you, and then across Labrador, most of you should hit the double digits. This is what I have in the forecast. We may see a degree or 2 warmer depending on those winds, but overall not too bad for the end of October, that's for sure. Temperatures will be in those double digits. And then we'll see these temperatures pretty much continue as we head through the weekend, but I'll get into those details when I come back.
Thank you, Ashley. Well, I have some sad news to report tonight. The music scene in St. John's has lost a dear friend. The man who created Fred's Records has passed away. Fred Brokenshire was only 19 when he founded Fred's Records. He was also a founding member of what is now Music NL and the East Coast Music Awards. He was also a producer with CBC Arts, and he not only promoted local music, he was also hands-on managing, for example, the band The Irish Descendants. He founded the restaurant Django's, and he was also an avid sailor. He was 69 years old.
Good afternoon, it's Ted Blades. Welcome to On the Go for Thursday, October the 28th.
Ted Blades is about to retire. He's the host of the #1 show. He's been here for the last decade and a half. We'll talk to him about his decision to retire. That's coming up.
This season on Stuffed, we're trying something different. We're gonna go out and make a meal from food that we source from the environment around us.
Let's get stuffed!
An outstanding radio journalist will soon sit down by the microphone for the last time. Ted Blades, the host of On the Go, is about to retire. His last show is tomorrow. Now, he's been hosting the afternoon, evening radio drive home show for CBC Radio in this province for 18 years. His CBC career spans more than 3 decades, and most of that with On the Go. Well, I met up with Ted in Radio Studio A, just down the hall from Here and Now, and I started by asking Ted what led to his big decision.
Well, in September, I passed 2 milestones. I passed 18 years hosting On the Go and 35 years full-time with the company, and it just seemed time. I've been at it a long time. I enjoy it. I still enjoy it. I'm going to miss it when I go, but it seemed time. The last year and a half since the pandemic started, we haven't had a guest in the studio. We haven't had a band or a musician in the studio, and that's not going to change for the next year. And I was like, do I stay around for that till things return to whatever the new normal is? Or do I go? And I said, you know what? I can go. I'm going to go.
You know, that almost 2 decades in the same chair, and you know, it wasn't just in this studio, but also in the old shop on Duckworth. I could waste a question by asking about highlights, but let me ask you a general question. What is it that you've really enjoyed about hosting On the Go and radio? Because radio's got a kind of warmth. As great as television is, there's certain warmth to radio that I think you're an old radio guy. What really made you happy doing this job?
2 things. I like the intimacy of radio, the fact that it's one-on-one between me and the listener, between me and the guest. It's a one-on-one conversation. Even when there's a panel, it seems to be more personal that way. But the thing that I think I'm proudest of about radio is those times when we've been on the air when the listeners needed us most. I think of Dark NL, Hurricanes Leslie and Igor, and Snowmageddon just last year. We were on the air for hours at a time. During Dark NL, I did a 12-hour stretch here on the radio. Just keeping people together, giving them the information they need, making connections. I remember during Dark NL, there was a woman in Portugal Cove who was trapped in her house. We talked to her on the phone. People came and rescued her. There was a guy during that time as well that was running out of oxygen. He was on an oxygen tank. We were able to hook him up with someone who could help him. That kind of public broadcasting, not emergency services, though those were emergencies, but vital services. For me, those were some of the most precious memories I'll have of the place.
On the lighter side, though, radio also offers times for all kinds of fun and humor and positive emotions. When you look back across what must be thousands of interviews, any funny moments or the funniest moments you think of that actually stand out in your mind as, okay, that's a keeper, even if it was a blooper, Ted?
The cheeky answer is the highlight of my career was on October the 17th, 3 years ago, the day that cannabis was legalized in this country. I was looking down through our Twitter feed, keeping an eye on the headlines as they come through, and up comes a notice from the Dominion store in Gander or Grand Falls, Windsor, the Dominion store in Grand Falls, Windsor. And I went on the air and I said, you know what? I never thought I'd say this on the radio, but the Dominion in Grand Falls is out of dope. But if we want to talk about listener-generated humor, I think my favorite moment was an interview I did years ago with a farmer on the west coast of the island who'd had his crop of turnips stolen. He'd harvest them. They were in bags. He was going to pick them up that day. He came back to the field and they were gone. I asked him if there was any way to track them. And without missing a beat, he goes, well, it's not like turnips have fingerprints now, is it?
These marvelous moments. So let me ask you this as you get ready for your final show tomorrow. Do you think that those of us in this business have an unfair advantage in Newfoundland and Labrador in terms of going to interview people, as far as getting people to open up and be colorful and be warm? Because I talk to some of my friends who work in other parts of Canada, and some days they say, oh, it's really hard to get people to talk. I've never really felt that same barrier here.
The CBC asked me to write a column for our website on my years here, and that was one of the things that I said in there is that whatever meager skills I brought to the table, a great deal of the success I've had in radio comes from the fact that I decided to have a career here in Newfoundland and Labrador. in the middle of it all, my wife and I moved to BC for 3 years. We came back, and I'm listening to the radio, and the stories here are simply better. They're the same stories we heard out in British Columbia. Person A is mad at government or organization B for reason C, but they were better interviews. They were better interviews, better stories. And the reason is because people here aren't shy, they're passionate, they're colorful in their language. It does make better radio. We do have an advantage here that our colleagues in the rest of the CBC don't, and lucky us.
All right, Ted, we'll listen to you and Catherine, your family. All the best and congratulations.
Thank you kindly.
We'll have to use some hand sanitizer now, but I'm not letting you go without a handshake.
This time next week, I'll be like every other CBC listener. I'll be at home yelling at the radio.
You're sort of bringing that person's name back into like the collective memory.
Gone but not forgotten, we'll meet a couple preserving pieces of the past. That's next.
Whereas Fat Cat or the Black Sheep, very fortunate to still have this room.
There's a community in the Black Sheep.
I remember it vividly, actually, the first day I held sticks.
I want to capture the gigs, I want to capture the facial expressions.
Creating the song that you want to hear.
That made me feel better listening to that. And maybe I could write my feelings out and see how I like that.
It's really all about the music.
Well, we don't often think of cemeteries as heritage sites, but one young couple in St. John's is trying to change that, one headstone at a time.
Robin Lacey and Ian Petty are historic archaeologists who are plotting their future around preserving the province's past. Chrissy Holmes now has their story.
These headstones date back to the Victorian era, a time when people were obsessed with death and all things ancient Egypt. The belief was that the obelisk would point the dearly departed to the heavens. They needed a clear path to get there. That path has since been overtaken by trees. As they grow above, so they root deeper below, season after season. It's here, in this space between life and death, that one young couple is plotting their future.
It's very organic ground in the cemetery, so it's very easy for foliage to grow like this.
Unsurprisingly, people or compost at the end of the day, so the trees tend to go pretty well. So.
Many of the people buried here played a role in growing the city of St. John's.
We're working with the General Protestant Cemeteries Board to do a couple of monument restorations here at the site of significant people and monuments that really needed some care to extend their lifespan a little bit.
With over 4 centuries of burial history, Newfoundland and Labrador has the oldest known European graves in North America. That, plus MUN's reputable archaeology program and a mutual love of all things mortuary, is what first drew them to study here years ago. But their academic work eventually took them back to the mainland.
Dale Jarvis of the Heritage NL constantly telling me that we need to move back to the province. When we got back, we were we need to address this demand that there is in the province for preservation.
The reasons and the opportunities kept on. They moved back to pursue their PhDs at MUN and start a new life as historic archaeologists.
Yeah, we got married last year, and we started this business last year as well because there's a clear demand for cemetery preservation in the province.
Like this unique chest tomb, the resting place of Andrew McCracken, dated Christmas 1839. The monument used to look like this, but over time it had fallen over and broken. There is an air of mystery around Andrew McCracken's grave.
What's most interesting for me about him is why he's here. And if he was buried in this spot in 1839, it is by most records not a cemetery.
On top of that, there's a giant slab of marble they found hidden and buried at the base.
I think marble probably would have been used as the base, just as a show of wealth.
So it's essentially, it's like a BMW for death.
In the Victorian era, people put a lot of money and marble in their graves.
When marble gets really soft with a lot of moisture in it, if the stone is starting to fall, and I think there's some examples in the cemetery where it almost looks curved.
Sinking graves are common here. In a space where respect for the dead is paramount, the key is disturbing the grave as little as possible. To preserve these historic sites, they've been working with some new technology.
We use something called monument grid, which is a reinforced soil system.
It's essentially a snowshoe for the gravestone. It spreads and distributes the weight evenly. We recently held a workshop on basic headstone repair and cleaning down in Cape Broyle. During that workshop, there was 4 instances where we used MonuGrid, and collectively that was the first use of that technology, a reinforced soil system for use in a cemetery here in the province.
They've also used the grid system to secure the foundation of another well-known monument, the Thorburn Fallen Angel.
Thorburn Road, Thorburn Lake, Thorburn. Yes, Robert Thorburn.
Thorburn became prime minister in 1885.
These are monuments to remember people by, and being able to restore them is sort of helping them fulfill that purpose longer.
Other lessons remain here too. Like the ancient Egyptian pharaohs, the Victorians desired permanence. The lesson now is if you do plan to memorialize, don't put your money on marble.
Granite holds up really well. Granite's what was used in Egypt to make all those sculptures that still look great.
Robin and Ian say they're already booking more preservation work for next summer. They hope for a long future in helping to preserve the province's past. Chrissy Holmes, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, Halloween is right around the corner, and you're certainly not going to be spooked by this forecast.
Well, earlier in the show, we heard from the Association of New Canadians about the Afghan refugees who landed in this province earlier this week. Well, escaping Afghanistan and the Taliban rule is a stressful journey for refugees. About 370 people recently arrived in Ottawa. The CBC's Robin Miller spoke with one family who are working to build a new life from a hotel room and what it took to get there.
Those are some experiences that I will never forget it.
Dr. Mohammed Kais Formuli says it took his family 4 trips to the airport in Kabul, Afghanistan before they were finally able to board a Canadian plane out of the country. The scene at the airport was volatile and at times violent, not a place for young children.
Sometimes my little children, in the sleep, they were just jumping because of the shock that they faced there.
But now the family is safe. Formuli's wife, 4 young children, his mother, brother, and 3 of his sisters are all now living in a West End hotel in Ottawa. A new reality that, for the children, is hard to accept.
I tell them that, you see, we were in a very bad condition. There was no water, there was no food. In addition to that, we were struggling with a life-threatening scenario. But right now we are very, very comfortable beds. We have sufficient food. We have the people that are around us that they are very nice.
Mohammed Shah's Formuli is the brother. He too is a doctor and feels grateful to be in Canada, but says emotions are mixed.
If I work hard, I can really reach my goals. On the other hand, I'm very disappointed about my country, a country that we worked for it for over 20 years.
Along with leaving the chaos, they also left friends and family behind. It's a heartache that hangs over the family as they work to move forward, taking steps to secure housing, healthcare, and employment as they, like so many Afghan refugees, start over in Canada. Robin Miller, CBC News, Ottawa.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has started his 6-day European tour with a stop in the Netherlands. He'll also make visits to Italy and Scotland for 2 major international conferences. The Prime Minister left Ottawa this morning. Now, his stop in the Netherlands will include an address to Dutch parliamentarians, a visit to a Canadian war cemetery, and a meeting with the Dutch Prime Minister. Trudeau will then travel to Rome for a G20 summit. The meeting of leaders from the world's largest economies will focus on the post-COVID economic recovery. And after that busy time, he'll attend the United Nations COP26 environmental conference in Glasgow. Attracts politicians from all over the place. Nations will once again attempt to set limits on greenhouse gas emissions and control climate change. Well, in Canada, the oil patch is a key economic driver, and the industry is experiencing something of a boom. Oil and natural gas prices, as we've noted, at the highest that they've been in years. And that has many calling for companies to set aside some of that windfall to help slash harmful emissions. But the industry is pushing back. CBC's Kyle Bax has that story.
Oil and natural gas prices keep climbing, the value of both nearly doubling since the start of the year. Energy research firm Wood Mackenzie says the industry should seize the moment, calling the oil price windfall a golden opportunity to speed up the sector's decarbonization. But some executives say climate is one of several priorities.
Our investors expect us to continue to be a successful financial business. So it's a bit easy to say, oh, well, high prices are high now, but we simply can't count on them. Are we looking at every alternative that we can to make this happen? Absolutely.
I've been in the business just over 40 years. But when I started, this would have been a conversation about, can we produce more? Let's go and just exploit and produce more. Well, the conversation is profitability. And the second one is ESG related matters relative to environment. How can we do this better and cleaner?
The oil patch represents about a quarter of Canada's total emissions. Last year, companies borrowed billions of dollars when oil prices crashed, even at one point turning negative. That's why much of the profit produced now is going to pay down debt. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
A new report is shining a stark light on rising prices and the costs some people in the country are paying. It reveals a 20% increase in the number of Canadians who have turned to food banks over the last 2 years. The CBC's Refugee has more.
It wasn't easy for Tina Labrador Whalen to get behind the idea of using a food bank.
I was shy and very nervous to come in.
She came here at the start of the pandemic after getting laid off from her job at a restaurant, a difficult conversation with her then 11-year-old daughter.
I did explain the best way I can is, sometimes we need help.
Indeed, a new report that surveyed food banks across the country showed Canadians paid 1.3 million visits to them in March, a 20% increase over the same month 2 years ago.
The money runs out before the month does.
David Armour's group commissioned the study.
We're calling it a perfect storm. What's driving it is increased food costs, increased housing costs, high level of unemployment due to the pandemic, and that isn't really changing as quickly as we had hoped.
exacerbated in big cities where housing costs have dramatically increased.
We went from 3 to 4 trucks, mainly because we are picking up a bit more food.
Food Banks Canada does offer suggested solutions, including financial help for tenants, ongoing support for the unemployed and dramatically underemployed, and a hard look at establishing minimum incomes across the country.
So the social safety net isn't working. So our biggest fear is we don't, as Canadians, take advantage of the fact of saying, this is not working. How do we rebuild?
Back in Gatineau, Lambert Whalen says those who don't need food banks should have more empathy, especially considering how easily that can change.
I would encourage for everyone that if you can, to help out when needed, to pass the word around, because we are in need for any support that we could get to help out everyone in our community.
A message she tries to embody herself. She's gone from a client at the food bank to working here. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Gatineau.
All right, time to look ahead to the weekend and the weather forecast. Things are looking good.
They're looking great, at least for the first half of the weekend for parts of the province for sure. Let's take a look at the map. Not a whole lot has changed through the week. We've seen that ridge of high pressure just slowly sink further south, but as it continues to do that through the day on Saturday, we should see plenty of sunshine across the island, but in behind that, then we're going to start to see a little bit more cloud cover. So certainly through the afternoon on Saturday, we'll probably see a little bit more cloud cover in play than we certainly have been seeing for the Big Land through most of the week. But as we get into Sunday, the next weather maker is going to move in, and this is going to bring some showers, unfortunately, to Lab West as we head through the day. Looks like it will make it towards the southwestern portions of the island as well as we get through the evening hours. So you may get a few hours of some clear skies, or at least some dry evening hours, but other than that, we will see some showers roll through, and it will work its way across the Big Land as well as we get into Sunday afternoon. Sunday evening rather. Otherwise, not a whole lot to talk of. As we get into Sunday night into Monday, then we'll see those showers work their way across the island. So temperatures on Saturday looking absolutely beautiful. Nothing but sunshine pretty much across the board. Again, maybe a few cloudy periods as the day goes on up across the Big Land, but mostly sunny to start. 9 degrees in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Same thing for Lab City, Cartwright, looking like you're going to reach the double digits. And then plenty of double digits across the island. 13 degrees in Corner Brook for you on Saturday. Same thing for Marystown. And we should hover around 10 degrees for St. John's. Now, Sunday Halloween forecast looking beautiful, at least to start. Some clouds will roll in. This is the afternoon temperatures. But because we're going to see some sunshine, the temperatures will drop quite dramatically after sunset. So we'll likely see them drop into the single digits for the time to go out and trick or treat. But overall, it will be a beautiful day, except we will see that rain move in late day, certainly for the southwest. Now, after that, as we get into next week, it is looking a little bit unsettled. However, these above seasonal temperatures will stick around. So still sitting around 10, 11 degrees as the daytime highs, but the overnight lows look like they're going to start to dip. And then for central Newfoundland, you're looking at a similar forecast on Monday as far as that rain goes, but mix of sun and cloud for Tuesday, back down to the single digits, and same thing for western Newfoundland. And then as far as Labrador goes, at least for the east, you're looking at some showers returning, not a washout, but that chance of shower is certainly in place. Going to hang on to those double digits and then drop as we get into Tuesday back down to the single digits. And that is the story for western Labrador as well, except Monday night it will change over to snow and looking at some periods of snow through Tuesday as well. Had to share this photo, flat calm fall scene in Eastport. Gail Parsons shared that shot with us, and if you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beautiful Eastport.
That is a great shot.
It looks like a painting.
Yeah, I always love the reflection shots, but with the trees, that color, it's
and then the blue sky.
Yeah.
Nicely done, Gail. You've pleased all of the judges tonight.
Well, that's it for us for this Thursday evening. Heading into the weekend tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Hope you can join us then.
See you then.
Good night.